Happy Tuesday and welcome back to Post Sports Live. I'm your host, Jonathan Forsythe. Joining me in the TV studios at Post TV, LaVar Arrington.
Hi.
Dan Steinberg.
Hello.
How are you guys' weekends?
Very nice.
Nice?
Yep.
It was a Redskins free weekend for you. How do you spend that?
No stress.
No stress.
How about that?
Dan, you had a blog post up on yours.
I went to Las Vegas. I gambled a little bit on sports, a very minor bit because I have professional ethics and standards. But, you know, if you had bet consistently against Washington sports teams all weekend, you probably would have done okay.
Yes.
Caps lost 2. Navy lost. Maryland football lost.
Maryland basketball lost.
Maryland basketball. I guess Navy didn't cover, I should say.
Yeah.
Wizards covered twice in a row. But
And Georgetown lost. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a tough weekend.
Yeah.
Tough
Rough
weekend.
one.
I actually,
fun, though.
since you guys never asked me, I have my weekend,
Yeah, well,
Saturday.
how was your weekend?
I'm proud to announce that the team, that my son's flag football team, the 7- and 8-year-old Bears of the Frederick County Parks and Rec Flag Football League, went on a run and won the championship on Saturday.
very
let me
nice.
throw something in
Yeah,
there.
go ahead,
because
throw it out there.
I coach my kids' I-9 football flag football team, 6 and 7, and we had an undefeated season.
Oh, I feel a bet coming on between the Bears and your team.
I almost believe that our 6 and 7-year-olds, through superior coaching, could beat his 7, 8-year-olds.
I don't know. We won the championship. We should set that up. All right. Enough about our weekends.
There you go.
We got a lot to talk about in today's show. We're going to preview the Eagles game. We're going to go through some tiebreakers, go through some bold predictions. A couple of us nailed it last week. Some of us didn't. We're going to talk about Maryland football and the state of Maryland football and Randy Edsall specifically. And as that team just sort of continues on a downward spiral after a hot start, we'll talk about the Caps and wonder about their struggles on the even strength, where they're so good on the special teams. They're struggling right now below average on even strength. And then Wizards will end the show with talking about who's more vital to the offense, John Wall or Bradley Beal, who's coming off a career-high 34 points in the Oklahoma City loss, the loss that cost Dan a little bit of money. All right, let's start with the Redskins, guys. They're 3-6 again. Why does this year's 3-6 feel different than last year's, LaVar?
I don't know why 3-6 would ever feel different. If you've got 3 wins and 6 losses, it feels the same to me. You're a losing team. So whether they're able to, and I know the question derives from whether they're going to be able to run 7 games in a row again this year, but just looking at it at face value, answering the question, 3-6, when you're 3-6, it doesn't feel different. You're a team that doesn't know how to win. And I think that until they show that they can win and win on a more consistent basis, I don't think it feels any different.
Well, I think what John means maybe is that some fans were probably less optimistic now than they were last year at this time. I think the reason for that is because through it all last year, through that 3-6 start, RG3 still seemed sort of superhuman. And you know, the one of those late losses before they got to 3-6 was at Pittsburgh, where there were like 11 drops or whatever, and you didn't really hold that against him. And you sort of had the feeling, no matter what happens, this kid could win any football game for us. I think that's what it felt like last year. I don't know that it feels the same way this year for obvious reasons, because you know he's turned the ball over a lot more. He hasn't been quite as explosive with his legs. So to me, that's really the big difference. Is last year you sort of thought this kid can bail us out of any football game, and this year it just doesn't feel quite the same.
And the defense is playing worse this year as well than it was last year even. I mean,
probably comparable.
They're close, maybe not as far off. But, I mean, it's hard to pin the blame on the offense for the team's struggles.
But
this far
I would
through
say
the season.
on the reverse, I know we're going to talk about this a little bit later, but if anything, the division seems worse this year than last year. And so that should maybe counteract that a little bit.
But they are playing some better teams down the stretch than what they did last season as well. So you got Kansas City on that list. You got San Francisco that's on that list. The Giants don't look now, but they've put 3 games in a row. Maybe they're this year's Washington Redskins team. And then all of a sudden we had the Eagles, and they've caught fire. They've found a way to rejuvenate and kind of revitalize their season.
I think the jury's out on the Eagles. I mean, they've won 2 in a row.
You go to Green Bay and you're not facing Aaron Rodgers too.
Yeah,
Can I just say one other thing about the last year, this year thing? I mean, I know that it's easy to look back now and say, oh, that was like inevitable that they were going on that run. I know someone like Jason Reed and Tony Kornheiser both sort of predicted that. But at the same time, I think most Redskins fans were not thinking that was going to happen last year. The fact that it did happen sort of makes you misremember it. But I know I sat here in the same room and said, this team can't win 2 games in a row. Why in the world are we talking about them winning 4 or 5 in a row? So the NFL is so unpredictable. No one saw the Ravens as a Super Bowl winner last year at this time.
That's very true.
And their remaining schedule, you touched on it already, LaVar, is more difficult at least winning percentage-wise, against the opponents than
course.
Dallas's and Philly's
Right.
the rest of the way. But they still have 3 games left against the NFC, or 4 games left against the NFC East.
That's right.
So, I mean, there's still a lot of ways they can sort of move up in that stats. They're still just a game and a half behind both Dallas and Philly.
I just don't think that there's any reason to feel any differently. You know, I think we thought the season was over when they were 3-6 last year.
Yep. Shanahan certainly did. It
And I
seemed
know Jay Reed and those guys, as Dan stated, felt like they could run off the table, and that's fine. But for the most part, the season probably was over. So until they prove something different, I don't see why we should look at it any differently.
And the historical record is definitely against it. I think the other interesting wrinkle this year, I don't know if we need to move on, but the other thing is there's going to be a lot more Mike Shanahan contract talk because, they weren't firing him after 3 years no matter what happened last year. But this year, it's going to get interesting. Do you let him be a lame duck? Do you give him a contract extension? Do you make a call that he needs to finish strong this year to bring him back at all? I think that if they don't run off a couple wins in a row, we've got 5 or 6 weeks of coach talk in front of us.
We've talked about that leading up to the past month or so. We'll have plenty of that ahead as the season progresses. Let's move on to a tiebreaker, guys. And if you're a GM for a week and you had a choice between Nick Foles of the Eagles, who's on fire right now, and RG3, who would you play this week, Dan?
Obviously, Robert Griffin III is a more talented quarterback and is probably going to have a much grander NFL career. But I got to say, this kid, Nick Foles, 16 touchdowns and 0 interceptions. That is an absurd, absurd ratio. The way RG3 protected the ball last year was one of the greatest things about his rookie season. He's not doing it quite the same this year. He's turned the ball over a lot, both with the interceptions and the fumbles. If you protect the ball the way Nick Foles is doing, you're going to just win a lot of football games. And so I look at that 16-0 ratio, and I say that this week I would rather have Nick Foles the way he's playing.
16-0, that's like MVP type numbers if you protracted throughout an entire season. Go ahead, LaVar.
It was a backup. Mm-hmm. And I think the justification with sometimes having success is because people don't really know how to plan and prepare for you. And maybe that's why RG3 had a great year last year. Maybe that's why Kaepernick had a great year last season. There's no real way of knowing how true that may be, but I know this. RG3 came in as a franchise caliber quarterback. I don't think that's changed. I think that he has shown a steady progression as the season has continued on. And for all the fierce and maybe harsh criticisms that have been connected to him this season, I still think he's that player. He has shown the ability to make plays. I don't really know what happened in the second half of that Minnesota game. If they'd have kept playing the same way in the second half that they did in the first half of that game, I don't think they just win. I think they blow out the Minnesota Vikings. But one reason or another, they did not approach the second half the same way that they did the first half. And there you have a loss that takes place. I'm taking Robert Griffin III because I feel as though his explosive ability, whether it be in the passing game or being able to run around with the ball, is a very rare mixture of what you would get out of a player.
Since our colleague Mike Wise isn't here, I guess I'll have to be the third voice in the tiebreaker. Mike, wherever you are, we miss you, buddy. Thanks for communicating. Anyway,
that was
I'll take. It's hard to go against 16-0 Foles, but I'll agree with you, and I'll use this stat. Basically, because the Eagles are 31st ranked in pass defense, I think RG3 has steadily progressed in the passing game. He's starting to look a little better against some bad defenses, granted, but I think that you look at that stat and that matchup, that bodes well for the Redskins going this week. So I'll take RG3. But I think that's a toss-up. All right, guys, let's talk about the Eagles specifically. And it seems like a long time ago, but that Week 1 game again, that Monday nighter, now different quarterback, 33-27 was the outcome. Redskins lose. Is there anything the Redskins can take from that game, LaVar, going into this game to help them prepare for the Eagles?
Yeah, you lost.
Motivation.
I'd say that's the first thing that you take, of course. And they embarrassed you. 30, what was it? 33 to 27.
It was
not
that
a competitive
game. It was never
game.
that close, right?
It was never a competitive game. They came back in garbage time. So it was first game of the year, but it was kind of like, oh, here's the Chip Kelly,
right.
Here's his era. It's now underway. So, and you guys were the doormat for that coverage. So, and we saw that was not a foolproof deal. That Chip Kelly's system was not as I guess, unstoppable as people had thought after that game. I think that's the first and most important piece that you take into this. But also you have more film to study now going into this game to see what exactly you have to contend with.
I don't know what you take away from it, but I know that sort of established one of the things that we figured would be a problem and turned out to be a problem was the Redskins' back end of the secondary and getting guys down in space. And you know, the Eagles are still just as quick as ever. They don't have Michael Vick, obviously, who hurt them a lot in that first game. But McCoy and Jackson, it's just a lot of speed back there and a lot of elusiveness.
And your boy Riley Cooper has really played some inspired football.
Yes, you're right. And, I think London Fletcher did not have a great game in that first game against the Eagles, and I think you could probably say that for him in a lot of these recent games too. We thought last year he might be kind of slowing down a little bit, but I think more than ever it's hard to get that feeling that the guy, I mean, he's a great leader, obviously, great coach on the field, but is he the middle linebacker that you want when you're facing that kind of speed in space? I don't know. I mean, I think they're going to have to slow down Jackson and McCoy to have a chance.
LaVar, let me put on your defensive coordinator hat. Do you prefer to prepare for this Eagles offense with Michael Vick or with their other quarterback, Nick Foles?
I think if I'm a defensive coordinator, it doesn't matter. But I think you do prepare for them differently.
Sure.
One is more of a mobile quarterback. The other is more of a passer.
Mm-hmm.
So, again, I think that there has to be a commitment to a more aggressive style of defense by Hazlitt. I look at the lack of sack production, the lack of hit production on the quarterbacks, and even tackles for losses. It's just, I think that's more of a symptom of not being aggressive enough. So to me, I think that you have to make sure you roll your coverages to really give you a fair opportunity. Probably, to be honest with you, I don't know. D'Angelo Hall has covered the best receiver on the teams leading up to this point and has done an excellent job. Do you put him on DeShawn Jackson? Do you put him on Riley Cooper?
Jackson. He's got to be on Jackson.
I don't know.
There's going to be a lot of talking if those two guys are on each other.
Oh, man, wolfing all day.
I don't know. And if that's the case, then you probably would assume that you can roll your coverage over to Riley Cooper if you feel D'Angelo Hall can do what he needs to do. But ultimately, whether Mike Vick is in there or Nick Foles, this defense has to be more aggressive because you're not getting the production out of that front eight that we would assume would have been your strongest point of
Absolutely,
this
you
defense.
figure
The buzzer sounded. Make it quick, Dan.
No, I was just saying, you figure that the edge rushers are the strength of this team, and against Minnesota, a team with a multitude of kind of mediocre quarterbacks, those guys had all day. They had all day back there.
One sack, right?
Let's move on to bold predictions, guys. A quick recap last week. LaVar, you nailed it. You called a first quarter RG3 touchdown. For the first time all year, RG3, it was at the end of the first quarter, but he got it. But he got the touchdown pass, so you hit yours. I was wrong. I had the Redskins win in a last-second field goal. Jason got half right, actually. He wasn't quite to 300 yards passing, about 20 yards shy of that, but he did have the 3 touchdowns, all in the first half. And then Dan, 3 picks. It started out well.
First drive, 1 interception. The rest of the game,
drive, but that was
0.
it. So I like the boldness. So let's go bold predictions for the Eagles game this week in Philadelphia, where the Eagles are winless this year, Dan. What's yours?
Okay, I've got a two-prong here.
All right. That's tougher to pull off now.
Yeah, but I don't know that either of them is particularly bold.
All right.
I think that the Redskins are going to outrush the Eagles. The Eagles have the number 1 rushing offense in the NFL. The Redskins are actually up there, but the Redskins' rushing defense is worse than the Eagles. Nevertheless, I believe that the Redskins will outrush the Eagles in Philadelphia, but still lose the game.
So you have a loss for the Redskins, but outrushing the Eagles.
Yeah.
All right, I like that.
Thank you.
LaVar, give me something.
I believe this defense will hold LaShawn McCoy under 100 yards of total offense this weekend.
That would be huge.
Yeah.
I'm going to say Foles has multiple interceptions. I think the defense turns him over. I think it's just a simple you're due theory. That guy's due to throw a pick or two. If it's not a batted pass or something, maybe Kerrigan gets his hand on one. But I'll say more than 1 interception for Foles this week. That'll be my bold prediction. All right, guys, that's quick. We ended that segment quickly. Look at that. We're ahead of schedule because of Mike not being
normally we have 4 people who offer bold predictions. Right now there's 3.
Now there's 3.
My bold prediction is that Mike Wise's next invitation to appear with us will get lost in the mail. How about that?
I like that one.
Thank you.
All right, guys, let's turn our attention now to Maryland football. And as anybody who's watched this show knows, I'm a season ticket holder. I'm an alum. Go out there every Saturday. This week, actually, I was spared the expense because of the success of my son's flag football team. We won all those games, and I didn't end up going to see the debacle that was the 20-3 loss to Syracuse. So it was doubly good for that reason. But I have a tiebreaker question based on the Feinstein story column that ran yesterday, Dan. Is it time? Does Randy Edsall deserve to be fired? And LaVar, I'll ask you that question first.
On what grounds, other than they're losing, is what I would say.
Well, there's usually a good reason.
It's 11 and 22.
It's a good reason when you're looking at a coach with his team. Okay, if I'm basing my decision off of the losses, I also have to take into consideration the information that goes with that. What's the information? The first year, it's a first year. They're not his players, for one. He has to get an idea of what he's going to do with the personnel that he has. He has to get his personnel in place. You generally give a first-year coach a reprieve. The second season, all his quarterbacks, not one.
Yes. Second season, I totally agree with you.
All of his quarterbacks go down.
Yep. You're starting a backup linebacker at quarterback for the last half of the season.
This season, the wheels fell off when literally the wheels on his receivers, which is his most gifted position on this team, go down, hurt, broken legs. They're out for the season.
In the same game.
In the same game. Yeah. And the downfall, the spiral started after that took place. When Diggs he's arguably one of the most gifted players in the country, let alone just on the team. I cannot make a decision in terms of what you're trying to build based off of those. He hasn't been here long enough. He hasn't created the culture long enough. He doesn't have enough of the players that we would need to see to be able to judge if we get rid of them or not in terms of success with players that he's bringing in. He has not been here long enough to base that type of decision off of the circumstances that he's been under.
So 2-10 is acceptable the first season. I get your argument about having giving a new head coach some time to get in.
I think you should make your case.
Let me make my case.
Make your case.
2-10 first season. I totally agree. Second year, you could write it off. All those injuries, that was some of the unluckiest stuff that could happen to any team. This year, it's not just the receivers either. Dexter McDougal in the secondary, they've had other injuries that have ravaged their team this year, which I think would be a case in your argument. I agree. Except for the fact that this year is weird. They had 2 bye weeks, right? Coming off the combined 2 bye weeks, they've scored 3 points in 2 games coming off bye weeks. That's coaching. That's preparation. And yeah, one of those games was against Florida State. But come on. Wake Forest, Syracuse, these games they're getting blown out by mediocre teams in the ACC. That's just, I don't care how many injuries you have with your quarterback, you need to be more competitive in those games, and they're just not. So my argument is yes, it's time to let them go. Dan, break the tie.
It's weird because I think that I am impatient for a lot of things, and for some reason, I don't totally understand why. I feel like it hasn't been enough time yet. I feel like if for no other reason, then it would be sort of a public declaration that we really messed this up by the 2 guys who are still going to be making decisions for this school and this athletic program moving forwards. I think that you have to go into the Big Ten. You have to let this guy try to go through a season with some semblance of his actual roster and see what happens. I'm kind of skeptical because even this year with their hot start, they beat no one.
Exactly.
They beat no one. And
teams were 7-33 combined against the FBS.
Yeah, and even that
West Virginia's 4-6.
Yeah, West Virginia's not very good.
They broke their hearts.
They beat them badly, yes, but still they were nobody.
And I think Feinstein and you both make pretty strong cases. It just seems like you can't snap your fingers just quite yet.
They're 5-4, but they should be 4-5. Virginia missed a field goal that would have beaten them late. They should be 4-5. They should be 5 losses in a row. Anyway, all right, moving on. Not that we feel too passionately about this topic.
All right, but next year it could be total decision time for him.
Well, you'll find out
next year.
Absolutely, sure. Oh, that's a tiebreaker. Who goes first? Anyway, all right, that's for another show. All right, Capitals guys. The Caps are they come back home. They're playing a game. What is their upcoming schedule? They play the Blue Jackets, the Metro Division game this evening at Verizon Center. They're second place in the Metro behind Pittsburgh, so they're right. They're playing well. They've righted the ship after the slow start.
Playing well enough.
They've got great special teams. First in power play, second in penalty kill.
Dead on.
Talk to me about 5-on-5. What's going on? Isn't that weird?
It seems strange, but if that's a code that they can crack, this team now becomes a true legitimate contender. How they do it, I certainly don't know. But again, they've done well with their penalty kill. They've done well with their power play, but when it's 5-on-5, they don't seem to be able to have the same type of success. I think it's strange. I don't know. Maybe it's because they're so talented in the way that they move on the ice, their skating ability or whatever. They need more room, so less people makes it easier. I don't know. I can't really explain it, but this has been consistent.
It's been consistent for a couple of years. And the other weird thing, when you factor it in, who knows what effect this has on anything, but they're terrible at 5-on-3. Such a deadly power play, and yet they can't score on 5-on-3. They've done, I think, 9 times in a row they've been 5-on-3. They haven't scored. It's so weird. I don't know. I mean, fans certainly are asking a lot of questions about Adamowicz' line combinations. It's something that you obviously don't have to think about as much in the power play. Alex Ovechkin still wants to kind of carry the puck into the zone a lot on his own. Things seem to go better for him and for the team when someone else, a distributor, is carrying the puck into the zone and letting him do what he do, which is get in dangerous places, get time and space, and score goals on his own. It seems almost impossible to believe that this team could be behind at generating shots with the number of offensive stars that they have. But a lot of that starts at the blue end, a lot of that's at the back end, behind the blue line. A lot of that starts with the defenders getting the puck out, and I can't imagine it would continue like this. I can't imagine that. It seems like either the power play has to collapse or
totally
the
agree.
5-on-5 has to increase.
It feels like there probably over the course of the season there will be a balancing of that. They probably won't be quite as hot on the power play and PK, but then I think they'll probably improve. They're 21st right now in 5-on-5 as far as goals for, goals against. So
it's the shot generation, which is one of those analytics that people look at. It's not that great. But I think another thing that we have to talk about is so much hype going into this season. How will they do in a tougher division? What's going to happen now that they're out of the Southeast? And the reverse has happened. They're once again in the worst division in the NHL. The Eastern Conference is weaker than the Western, and the Metropolitan is the weakest of the two divisions in the Eastern Conference.
So far, though. It's still early. It's still early.
But the top end of the Western Conference.
The East is definitely weaker than the West, no doubt. But, I mean, Metro-wise, I don't know. I could still see that evening out as they go on.
I think that's possible, but the schedule just does not. It doesn't seem like if they're held back this year, it's not going to be because of their division, I would say.
I would be willing to predict, here's a bold prediction, that the Stanley Cup representative will come out of the Metro division.
Ooh, I like that. Where does that come from?
I don't know.
It's just being bold. I like that.
I think the top end, I think Washington, to be honest with you, I think if they're able to stay healthy and really give Oates the opportunity to tinker with these lines, I feel like they can be a very formidable team moving in the latter parts of this season.
One other thing that's been so weird and disheartening, I think, and maybe this is just something that you imagine with every team that you watch, but it seems like reliably after scoring a goal, the Caps allow a goal within the next minute.
Yeah.
It just seems like it happens so often. I don't know what.
Good
what
story from
that,
Katie today in the Post. Yeah.
Did she actually have a story of that
today?
today?
She had a story today.
Did not read that.
In Sunday's game against Colorado, it happened right after they tied it in the second period, and they lose that momentum right away.
Read the Washington Post, and then you won't look like a fool on
Way to
Post
support
TV.
your colleagues there.
Awesome.
All right, and a quick cap to the cap segment. Special thanks to Steve Alexi, who joined us at the live Post Sports Live event last week at Hill Country Barbecue. Among the many things we learned about him, he brushes his teeth before games, and his inspiration was Bob Probert growing up in Michigan. Not surprising. Brawler. Got a lot of questions about the Philly brawl. All right, let's move on, guys, to the Wizards. And here's a team that's won 2 of their last 3 after starting 0-3, guys. We're wondering, is this the same old Wizards? I think they heard us and they woke up. I don't know. What do you guys think? I mean, right now, the team's coming off a heartbreaking loss, though, Dan. They're coming off that heartbreaking loss that one of us on this panel lost money to in Vegas. But
John, I said last week, you can't overreact. They lost in Miami to the Miami Heat.
Right.
And they lost at home
You've been consistent on
without
this.
Nene. I mean, we're going to talk later about the backcourt, but Nene, I think, maybe is the most crucial player on this team right now. The way he distributes the ball, the body that he provides, there's the defensive presence, especially without Okafor. I just don't know that there's anyone on this team who can come close to offering what Nene does, just who can do anything remotely like what he does.
I think Gortat will be.
He and Gortat, what a great combo down low.
I think he will continue to improve. I think he'll be a major part of this team. I think they had the makings of a solid team. I really do.
Yeah,
I really do.
I think that there's
it's
a lot
like the first time you look at when they're coming on the court, like, wow, like
they can just make some free throws.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you, but it's the thing that we talked about in our little season preview, whether Nene can stay healthy.
I don't.
Out of the first 3 games, he missed 2 with a mysterious calf injury that he said if he kept playing, he could tear his Achilles. He misses 2 games, says, I could tear my Achilles if I keep playing, and then he's back. It just seems like
his track record isn't good.
No.
But I think that's, to me, that's what's going to determine the season, how much he can stay on the court.
Let me shift focus to the backcourt, guys. We talked about Bradley Beal coming off a career high against Oklahoma City. He's certainly shooting the ball well now. I'm curious, which player in the backcourt, John Wall or Bradley Beal, do you guys think is more critical to the success of this team? Dan, what's yours?
I think Beal is a phenomenal talent, and I think he's a star in the making. But I don't think this Wizards team works without John Wall, and I think we saw that at the beginning of last season. Obviously, Beal was a rookie then, but the team was abysmal without Wall. I think, Bradley Beal is getting his 30-some points because there's a guy that's creating some of those corner threes for him. I think that it just doesn't work without John Wall, especially when you look at the alternative, which is Eric Maynor and Garrett Temple. I mean, pretty big drop off right there. So I think John Wall is more vital.
John Wall, what do you say?
Yeah, I don't disagree with that, but at the same time, Bradley Beal was a rookie last season, so I think that you'll see him being able to do something that a lot of guys that become premier players in this league are able to do, which is create your own shots. I think Bradley Beal has that ability. I think Bradley Beal has the potential to be an all-star before John Wall becomes one. And in this league, I think it's an all-star driven league, so I go with Bradley Beal based off of that.
Beal's shooting way up in the last couple games. He's at 56% over his last 2. He started slowly, which, some of us idiots started wondering about whether or not there's cause for concern, but clearly not. He's hot right now anyway. I would break the tie. I'll say John Wall. I've been a proponent of Walls throughout last year, and you guys give him, I feel like sometimes he gets some unfair criticism given, in the past for some of the people around him that he's playing with. I think you're seeing the type of player he can be when he has the right pieces around him. And Otto Porter has even joined the team. The number 3 pick in the draft. Just wait till he joins the team.
Did you just say unfair criticism?
I said some unfair criticism.
Of a guy who hasn't made a all-star game since being a part of this team and gets a max contract.
You know what? John Wall has had more chances to succeed thus far than Randy Edsall. I think he's been here for 1 year longer than Edsall, right?
That's correct.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, but he's also performed a lot better than Randy Edsall, given the circumstances. And he takes blame on his own shoulders, which is another thing we didn't say about Edsall.
He does do that.
Edsall often likes to point blame elsewhere. Anyway, we're not going to – I could go on for that for a while, as you might imagine. Last question. For those of you who may have checked out, earlier this season we talked about the First and 17 project. DeShawn Hand, the number 1 recruit in the country out of Woodbridge. The Vikings just made the playoffs. They have a game against the number 1 seed in Virginia in 6A, I think, region on Friday night. He's making his big announcement on his 18th birthday this Thursday, LaVar, and it's between Michigan, Alabama, and Florida. Any hunch? Not that you would have any idea why, Dan. Who do you think he's going to choose and why?
Well, since you said not that I'm going to have any hunch, I'm going to just go with the who and not the why.
Okay.
Florida.
That's who he just came off an official visit there this weekend. LaVar, who would you think?
I'm going to say Michigan.
Michigan?
I'm going to say Michigan.
Michigan has long been sort of the leader in the clubhouse, what people think.
That's what you say?
Go ahead, LaVar. Say why.
Say why? I just think it might be Michigan.
You're a Big Ten guy. That's why. All right, I guess
I'd say Penn State then.
I'll say Alabama, I guess, just because we'll have 3 of them because of the Nick Saban factor and the fact that they've won so many national titles. But it'll be interesting. Check WashingtonPost.com/sports on Thursday at 12:30 for live coverage of DeShawn's announcement. We'll see then. It won't be long to wait.
Good luck, DeShawn.
Lots of elbow room this week. Enjoy that.
For Dan Steinberg, LaVar Arrington, I'm Jonathan Forsythe. Thanks for joining us on Post Sports Live. We'll see you next Tuesday. Same place, same time.